My brother stole my 8K life setup. I caught him on camera. When I confronted him, my parents took his side and called me selfish. So, I served them eviction papers and pressed charges. Now, they're begging me for mercy. Sup, Reddit? My brother stole my $8,200 setup and sold it for quick cash, thinking I wouldn't press charges, but I did. And when my parents defended him, I kicked them from my house after they lived there for months. Here's what went down. I'm a 29-year-old male, a freelance animator pulling in $75K in Austin. 3 years ago, I bought my own house. Nothing fancy, just a 4-bedroom ranch where I could actually work without roommate blasting music at 2 a.m. after years of grinding in animation studios and living with people who thought rent was a suggestion. Having my own space felt like winning the lottery. The house came with one permanent resident I actually wanted, my grandfather, Francis. He's 78, built like a brick, house, and spent 25 years as a union foreman before retiring. The man can fix anything, has zero patience for lazy, and raised me while my parents were busy being professional disappointments. When he needed somewhere to live after his apartment building got sold, it was a no-brainer. Then came the plague, also known as my parents. Vincent and Veronica managed to torpedo their entire financial existence about 2 years ago. Dad's a middle manager at some insurance company who thinks he's Gordon Gekko. Constantly chasing get-rich-quick schemes that would make a Nigerian prince blush. Mom works part-time at Nordstrom and spends her days on Facebook sharing articles about how millennials ruined everything. Their latest brilliant investment? Some NFT marketplace called Crypto Art Dynasty that turned out to be a complete scam run by some kid in his mom's basement. Lost their house, their savings, their dignity, the whole 9 yards. Naturally, they came knocking on my door with sob stories and promises about just until we get back on our feet. I said no. Big fat no. I'd seen this movie before. But then they brought Grandpa Francis into it. He'd been staying with them, and the thought of him suffering because his son's an idiot with money got me. So, like a complete idiot, I agreed to let them crash at my place temporarily. That was 18 months ago. They moved in with my younger brother, Matthew, who was 25 and had graduated college 2 years earlier with a communications degree, which is basically an expensive piece of paper that says, I spent 4 years learning how to be unemployed. Since graduation, Matthew had been living at home, playing video games, and letting mom do his laundry while he figured out his passion. The kid was everything I wasn't. Where I'd worked my ass off through art school and clawed my way up in animation, Matthew expected everything handed to him on a silver platter. Good looking in that generic frat boy way, charming when he needed something, and absolutely convinced the world owed him success without effort. Within the first month, I started noticing the red flags. Matthew would mention how lucky I was to have such expensive equipment, always with this edge in his voice, like my success was somehow unfair. He'd make comments about how animation was just playing on computers all day and couldn't understand why my setup cost more than most people's cars. Seriously though, he said one night over dinner, what do you actually need all that power for? It's not like you're running NASA simulations. Rendering 4K animation sequences takes serious horsepower, I explained. What I do in 8 hours would take a gaming computer 3 days. Still seems excessive for making cartoons. That word cartoons told me everything I needed to know about how he viewed my career. My animation setup was my pride and joy, an $8,200 custom workstation I'd built over 2 years. This wasn't some gaming rig. This was my entire career compressed into custom hardware. Dual RTX 4080 cards running in parallel. 128 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. A Threadripper processor that cost more than most people's cars. The dual 4K monitors alone were $1,200 each, color-accurate displays necessary for client work, where precision meant the difference between getting paid and getting fired. Professional drawing tablet, reference monitors, high-end audio interface, custom mechanical keyboard with Cherry MX switches, every component researched and saved for over months. The system was overkill for most people. But when you're freelancing animation for tech companies and movie studios, half measures mean losing contracts to people with better equipment. One render failure or color mismatch could cost me a $15,000 project. Within 6 months of them moving in, Matthew started treating my house like his personal entertainment center. But the real problem wasn't just his entitlement, it was how my parents enabled every bit of it. When I'd catch him using my computer without permission, they'd defend him with, like, he's just curious about your work or sharing is caring. The worst part was watching him develop this twisted sense of ownership over my success. He'd tell his friends about our house and our setup, like he'd contributed anything beyond being a professional mooch. The first real incident happened about 8 months after they moved in. I came home from a 14-hour render session to find him sprawled in my office chair playing Fortnite on my workstation, with his disgusting energy drink cans scattered across my desk. Dude, get off my computer. Relax. I'm just using it for like an hour. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. This is professional equipment, not your gaming setup. He rolled his eyes like I'd asked him to cure cancer. It's just a computer, Sebastian. Don't be such a hard ass. Just a computer? That machine costs more than you've made in 2 years. Whatever. Your clients aren't calling at 11 p.m. This wasn't borrowing. This was him establishing territory in my own house. I started setting boundaries, but every conversation felt like negotiating with a terrorist. I changed my passwords, put a lock on my office door, and started working from client offices more often just to avoid the constant battle for my own equipment. The really infuriating part was how my parents enabled his behavior. When I'd complain about him using my stuff without permission, they'd hit me with the family shares, When I pointed out that none of them contributed to bills or groceries, suddenly I was keeping score and being materialistic. Meanwhile, he was treating my hospitality like a divine right, using my car when it broke down, eating my food, bringing his loser friends over to hang out in my living room. I started keeping detailed records of the underscore partly for my own sanity, partly because I had a feeling I'd need documentation eventually. The pattern got worse over the next few months. I'd come home to find my computer warm, browser history full of gaming sites and social media I never visited. Someone had been using my workstation for hours at a time, probably while I was at client meetings. When I confronted Matthew about it, he'd play dumb. I might have checked email once or twice, he'd say with that innocent shrug that fooled our parents, but not me. But I started noticing more serious, password protected client files had been accessed. Project folders showed recent activity I hadn't done. Someone was going through my work, maybe even copying it. I installed monitoring software and discovered Matthew was using my computer for 4 to 6 hours daily while I was out. Not just browsing, he was running intensive programs, trying to learn animation software, using my tutorials and assets. The little, was basically attending Sebastian University for free, using my equipment to train himself on my dime. One day, I found him watching YouTube tutorials about freelance animation pricing while sitting at my desk. When I walked in, he quickly closed the browser and pretended to be just checking Facebook. Thinking about getting into animation? I asked. Maybe. Looks pretty easy. Easy? I mean, once you have the equipment, it's just moving pictures around, right? In his mind, the expensive equipment was the only thing standing between him and my success. The real turning point came about a month before the theft. He cornered me in the kitchen one morning, doing that fake casual thing where he pretends to make small talk before hitting you up for something. So, Seb, he started, not making eye contact. You know how I've been applying to marketing positions? You mean the 3 applications you've submitted in 6 months? Funny. Anyway, there's this entrepreneurship conference next week in Dallas. Like really high-end stuff. Tony Robbins is speaking. There's networking with VCs. The whole deal. I already knew where this was going. And well, it's $2,500 to attend plus travel expenses. But this could be huge for my career, man. Like life-changing huge. I set down my coffee. You want me to give you $2,500? Not give. Loan. I'll pay you back as soon as I land something. This could be the break I need.